Hey gang, welcome to Mzansi USA News. Today I would like to focus on what is happening in Northwest with what is known in South Africa as Zamazama. Now just a brief synopsis of what that is. It's a bunch of illegal foreigners who decided to perform illegal mining in South Africa. They of course have since been joined by some South Africans through obviously desperation and criminality. They do give their own reasons for joining these foreigners in doing such a sabotage against their own country. I would like us to dive into this because the purpose of me making this video is to demonstrate to you how manipulative the media can be to take advantage of a flawed attitude and a way of thinking that seems to be prevalent amongst black communities, right? Yes, I'm black, but this is something that we need to arrest, because if we do not, we'll be rewriting history and telling our children lies and stories that are factually untrue and fictional, and thereby creating lawlessness, which is not going to augur well or end well for us as a country, right? Let's start the video from the beginning and dive into the interview of Xolim Ngambi with these two union leaders.
Construction Union. Its president is Joseph Mathunjwa. This is a union that's long been calling for the formalization of artisanal mining. Also joining this conversation is National Union of Mine Workers Acting Deputy General Secretary Philip Mange. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Can I start with you, Mr. Mathunjwa? The commentary from the minister in the presidency, to quote her directly, "We're not sending help to criminals. Criminals are to be persecuted. We are going to smoke them out." What do you make of those comments?
Good evening to you and to your viewers.
I'm sorry, but that caught me off guard. I'm doing a reaction video here. That really, those remarks, even though I've heard them before, they really caught me off guard. Did the minister say something like that? Let's hear what the minister said again.
Mr. Mathunjwa, the commentary from the minister in the presidency, to quote her directly, "We're not sending help to criminals. Criminals are to be persecuted. We are going to smoke them out." What do you make of those comments?
Good evening to you and to your viewers. I think it's very fortunate that we are conducting these interviews. This is the same government when the workers on the 16th of August 2012 were fighting for the living wage at Marikane, and then they called the workers as criminals. I don't know now, how can they be able to distinguish between criminals and workers? So workers were mowed down, 34 mine workers were killed, fighting for economic emancipation by the very same government. And today they've got guts to say, let's smoke them out, those criminals. The same government have made this environment very fatal for illegal mining. We've been calling as AMCO that why can't you, reskill, empower all these former mine workers who are being retrenched by these big companies, your Anglo, your Sibanye, all these multi-international thieves that are looting the minerals of the country and leaving a depleted environment, to give them artisanal mining, to empower them. They've got skills. We are sitting over 32.9% of unemployment in South Africa. I'm not talking about SADC as such. So those people, remember, those countries are the labor sending areas, who's been here in South Africa for years with these skills. So do you think if the environment is created by this incompetent government, you think those people, they cannot use their skills to go and search for, for food?
Let's bring in...
Okay, before the other gentleman speaks up, I think it is important for me to correct the Mr. Joseph Matunjwa's message, because it is patently false that government shot at miners who were peaceful and were simply fighting for salary increases. When people fight for salary increases, they don't behave like this.
A scene of horror as South African police open fire on a group of protesting miners. According to sources, officers had been involved in a tense standoff at the Lonmin Marikana platinum mine, where employees had been involved in an already deadly strike, ostensibly over pay, but fuelled by conflict between the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union and the rival National Union of Miners. Initial reports suggest police laying down barbed wire were outflanked by one group armed with sticks and machetes, who refused orders to disperse. Police say they came under fire and responded, killing at least 30.
So contextually, what you've just heard from Mr. Matunjwa is factually incorrect. Yes, I do not promote the violence or the use of force by government, by the police, but something has to give. In our country, we have a constitutional republic. When you march, which you are entitled and is enshrined in the Constitution as a right, you do not bear arms, particularly against law enforcement. This is a mindset that leaders of the union like Joseph Matunjwa needs to eradicate from their uneducated members. Because these individuals who work in the mine, there is a reason, one of the main reasons why they work in the mine is that they are unskilled labor, meaning they are illiterate individuals. Therefore, you need to civilize them by having what you call meetings upon meetings to tell them what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. If the police had not shot at these miners who were advancing towards them on that day, the police would have been the ones who were left lying dead on the floor. We know this type of violence. We have seen it before. It is very, very important. And here's the other thing. Why couldn't the union leaders like Matunjwa prevail on their members to say they must disarm and take away the arms that they were carrying? Why couldn't they prevail on their members? So whilst I am literally a critic of what the police did in Marikana, because I believe that it was a use of force that may not have been necessary. However, I was not in the shoes of the police, and the proximity of what happened there, how close were those miners carrying such deadly weapons in their hands against the police? Where to the police, I do not know. And how much more ought they to have been allowed to advance their illegal activity of marching carrying such violent weapons. I am not for violence. However, deadly force has to be used by the police when they have no option. And I'm made to believe in this case, the police had no option. Sure, we can all, through hindsight, make all manner of political rhetoric and political statements that are not going to advance or help anything. This is very, very important. So in Marikana, it's not like the police just went on a rampage killing people who were unarmed and who are marching peacefully. That's not what happened. And it's not like the police killed people in Marikana who were toying or marching for the salary increases. That's a political rhetoric and it is false. I've heard this being advanced by EFF leadership, but it is patently false. This is very, very important. South Africans ought to embrace, or rather to put it deep into their spirits and souls, that in this country we have a right to march, and that right does not include bearing arms whilst we are doing so. Otherwise, then the police have to intervene. We know how many such instances have turned out violently in this country between citizens, among citizens, where other fellow citizens' cars were burnt. And in Marikana, if you follow the story, these very same miners had already killed 2 police officers in the days leading to this violence that you saw there. And they also killed other miners as well. And this is never really spoken of. Now, sure, you could say the police were there to kill them because they were carrying those weapons, having killed some of their fellow colleagues. I don't know. I can't prove that. But the lesson that we can all glean here is violence doesn't pay, particularly if you're carrying weapons against police. If you are carrying weapons against police, I know I may have now emphasized this to a point where you're tired of it, but I think it's a culture which we need to completely destroy. When the police stops you, you stop and you greet them and your arms are on the steering wheel. If they say get out of the car, you get out of the car. You do not exercise a right that you do not have. You don't have a right to be rude to the police when they are doing their job, for an example. And in the case of Marikana, we all know what happened, right? Okay, to cut a long story short, you saw what happened. You saw a group of individuals carrying very dangerous weapons advancing towards men in uniform. That's not acceptable. Let's continue.
Mr. Mange, into the conversation. Mr. Mange, do you have a particular problem with the comments of the minister in the presidency, or do you think that the government's stance to be firm on illegal mining is the correct language?
Good evening, Koli, and to your listeners. As NUM, we like to put it categorically clear that we don't support the statement. In fact, it is inhuman and irresponsible of the minister to utter such words when the people are trapped underground. You must recall, Koli, maybe one should highlight this important factor, that after in 1884, after the discovery of diamond in Northern Cape, people were mining manually. During that era, there were no machines, nothing, and mining was not regulated by that particular time. So people were doing mining manually using chisels and everything until the zipping, and then someone called Stilfontein Rhodes, he went abroad and then to bring back the machine to pump those waters. And then after that, that is where now this regulation of the mining started. So what is wrong with the African people when they want to go back to their primitive mining stage, to say we want to mine ourselves because we've got abundance of gold, we've got abundance of chrome, we've got abundance of all sorts of minerals in South Africa. What is happening now? South Africa remains with ghost towns. Chinese and Europeans are coming to South Africa. They take gold, they take everything. As we speak only now, I can tell you, I can cite, if you look at chrome, we are no longer having smelters which are smelting chrome in South Africa. If you can list them, I don't think you'll arrive at 5. Because what is happening now is that Chinese are doing illegal mine in South Africa. If now the minister like Ntshavheni is saying people are criminals, who are they selling that particular product to? Because some selves, they are criminals. The ones who are buying that particular gold, Chinese are in South Africa, they flooded South Africa. They are transporting all sorts of minerals from this country to Richards Bay and Maputo, and then our government does not call them criminals. Instead, they are calling them investors. But when our people, the people who belong to this country, are mining, they refer to them as criminals. There is no criminal activity in mining. In mining.
Okay, so you can see that this guy is probably completely unsuitable to know he should be a member of the EFF, because his rhetoric completely does not make sense. In a country of laws, he says there is no illegal mining. Zamazamas are illegal. Everybody knows this. This project of Vala Umkoti has been there for more than a year right now, right? It's a project that started last year, almost a year. It's a project that started last year, December 2023. And this guy is coming here and making a statement that these people are simply going back to pre-John Cecil John Rhodes era, where they were mining with chisels and all that. Really? Really? This is a serious joke, because he is asking a foolish question. What's wrong with Africans in their own country if they were to decide to go a primitive route? It's simple. The reason for the rule of law and for government is to regulate our exchanges, our interactions. In a civilized society, that is why you need laws. You need laws so that on the road, I don't run you over because my car is bigger than yours. That's why we've got traffic lights and stop signs and rules of the road that tells us what to happen. We need laws so that when I walk in the shopping center, I don't flatten you down for no reason simply because I'm bigger than you. That's called assault. And I cannot just decide to dig because I believe there are minerals here. Why? Because that's going to lead to civil war. It's going to lead to wars between the community, because the moment I start digging out and there is gold, there's someone else who's stronger than me and who has the armament, which is exactly what is happening over here. So why am I narrating what I'm saying to you? Because I have said the title of this video, or what I'm seeking to discuss here, is the manipulation of the media, is how the media can manipulate the wrong mindset that is resident in many of us black people. You heard Matunjwa creating a wrong impression that the police simply mowed down and slaughtered very peaceful individuals who were unarmed. And I showed you a video which I narrated to demonstrate that's a lie. And this guy is building on that lie to create an impression that these are South Africans who have just decided to go against the law by simply going to a pre-law or a pre-Cecil John Rhodes era. No, that's not what is happening here. Here is the reality of the matter, which they're not going to tell you.
Scores of alleged illegal miners are expected to appear before the Stilfontein Magistrates Court in the northwest. This after about 500 of them were forced to resurface from a disused shaft over the weekend. Now, they are believed to be from Lesotho, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. ENCA's Bafedile Moerane is following developments and joins us live now. Bafedile, good morning to you. This story has developed quite a lot in the past 24 hours.
Did you guys hear that? Did you hear where they are from? Do you want to hear that again? Clearly, the gentleman in the studio who's claiming that if Africans decide to do this is creating an impression that these are South Africans who are doing this. Even if they were South Africans, there were some South Africans amongst them, they are practicing lawlessness. It's just that simple. But remember, we all know Zamazamas are not South Africans by far majority. Are there South Africans participating in this? Of course there would be. Why? Lawlessness is not an exclusive trademark of any other country. You get the point? So it would be easy when people, South Africans, begin to see this happening within their communities to join in. Evil is much more enticing than good. Do not forget that. That is why we never get to teach our children how to do evil. But we have to teach them to do good. They do evil by default. Any child will touch an open fire whilst the parent never taught them to do so. They will steal, they would lie. So you have to teach them not to do these things. So what's the point? The point is it is factually incorrect that these are South Africans. By far majority of these individuals are not South Africans. And here is a video that demonstrates that in front of you. Notwithstanding, I'll show you another one where the number has now increased. You see the lady is wearing a green top. Check this out.
Reporter Bafedile Moerane with an update. Bafedile, good morning to you. How many miners have resurfaced from the mining shaft so far?
Well, of course, the total number that we got when they are combined with those who resurfaced yesterday and from last week into the weekend, the police are saying it's 834, but that's a total number of those that have been processed. And at this point, processing is still taking place here at Margaret Shaft. They have, what we understand is that they have slept here under the parking lot. But I will just shift on camera to show you that the number that we are actually seeing here, because we are unable to access beyond this particular place, it has been cordoned off. It's huge numbers. It's more than 800. The number of people that I hear that some of them have been processed and some are still on the queue to be processed, of which these huge numbers there generally are speaking to the capacity of correctional services facilities.
Now I zoomed that in so that you can see that these are not South Africans, right? Am I despising what they look like? No, I'm not. I'm just simply making the point that it is a lie for the union in the studio to insist that Africans have just decided. First and foremost, if by African you mean South African, you are lying. And if by African you mean the rest of Africa, well, since when was that acceptable? That's lawlessness. Nevertheless, let's move on.
In mining, Koli.
Okay.
Sorry?
Let's bring in Mr. Matunjwa. I'd like for you both to be brief so that you get a fair chance at this conversation. Mr. Matunjwa, you, as we mentioned earlier, your union has been calling for artisanal mining to be instituted in South Africa, to basically be made law. Now, the minister in charge of the mines, Gwede Mantashe, will tell you that artisanal mining is different to what the people who are underground, as we speak in Stilfontein, are doing. Do you know what the difference could be between artisanal mining and what the people who are understood to be underground are actually doing?
I think it's because maybe they are not regulated. There's the only difference that you can draw. Let me draw you back to the 2018. We marched to Union Building as AMCO under Section 77. We handed over the memorandum calling for the 60-40 of the minerals. 60% can be exported, and then 40% to be kept in South Africa for industrialization and beneficiations. And we even make a call that there shouldn't be any mine that is mothballed because of not making super profit. Let the government revoke the license and giving to other South Africans who are willing to make these mines working, who are not listed in New York Exchange or London Stock Exchange. We're still going to see huge problem in South Africa. As you see, they are closing the mines. Seriti, NAG, the former South 32 BHP Billiton mines, under Mike Dege and his cabal, they are closing down some of their mines. Those workers where they will be working. You see Zek Anthracite Colliery at Ulundi, they are closing down that mine, where these 1,000 workers and the community will be getting their livelihood. So we are failed by our state. They created this environment. You can't call those yes, you can call them criminals as much as they can call them, but the porous borders that they open for each and every Dick and Harry who comes here, as the comrade from NUM is saying, that Chinese in Limpopo, they are doing illegal mining, Zamazama. Even Sibanye, I usually to call them Zamazama. So workers are being killed every day, even with the very same regulated mines.
All right.
So therefore, there is no law in this country. You can't blame people who go and seek for livelihood because of this government who is so incompetent. 25 kids have been killed in the spaza shop, killed by illegal foreigners who are opening.
Okay, Joseph Matunjwa is being emotional right now. He has raised some issues that may sound valid until you hear this.
All right, let's take you back now to the Stilfontein matter and the matter of illegal mining, where hundreds of mining communities earlier today marched to the Department of Mineral Resources offices in Pretoria, calling for not only the department's involvement, but the mining companies as well. The protesters saying illegal mining crisis is worsened by the community's exclusion. For reaction to the protest and the ongoing situation in Stilfontein, and that's where scores of illegal miners remain underground, I'm joined now by Makosonke Buthelezi, Mineral Resources spokesperson. Mr. Buthelezi, good afternoon to you and thanks for your time. Why has it taken the department so long to make its voice heard on the Stilfontein matter?
Thanks, Oli. They should understand that the operations at Stilfontein, Operation Vala Umkot, is being led by the SAPS, and it's working in conjunction with the South African National Defence Force. So that is why they are at the forefront, and we are at the backseat. We're working with them at neck joints and all those structures. So that is the reason they are the one who wanted to give them space, because they are the ones who are leading the operations.
Does the department responsible for mining go along with the assertion that these are criminals engaged in criminal activity? We are not going to send any help. If anything, we are going to smoke them out.
We are unanimous as government that this is a criminal activity, and it should be stopped, and that is why we let the law enforcement agencies do that to fight crime.
The mining...
Now, that's a breath of fresh air. I'm not going to lie to you. The gentleman did not dilly-dally. He was just swift to respond to that indeed it is our position, that this is criminality which we need to get rid of, right, as a country. This is very, very important, because you can see that, first and foremost, the unions are amongst the most useless formations that you're going to come up with. They never create any jobs. They are never SMMEs. They are never innovators. They come to my organization, which I have formed and employed people to unionize. Their job is to be very destructive. And as Thomas Sowell will point out, unions are not for union members. But the simpletons do not know that. Unions are for unions. They are for union leaders. So you pay them a certain amount of money every month, so that Matunjwa can speak English like that, and he can dress like that and stay in an environment he would otherwise not stay in the name of claiming to be fighting for the rights of the union members. Now, will the union members get what they want from union leaders? Of course not. Why? When the mine is about to be shut down because it is no longer strategically viable to pursue it, or any other business, as it has been the case where Pick n Pay has closed more than hundreds of their shops, there is no union that's going to cause Pick n Pay to remain opened. Please get that in your head. That's why education is very important. We are focusing on the wrong things here. We need to say, let us reskill those individuals. Let's find where can we utilize their skills within the economy, right? So this is a breath of fresh air what I've just heard from this gentleman, but I'm going to continue with him because I think he addresses a number of issues that I would otherwise myself address. Let's continue.
Communities have marched to your department this afternoon, and they are very clear in their stance that these communities are not only excluded, but they also comprise former mine workers who are out of work, not because of their own choice, but because they were retrenched from work, and this is the only job they know how to do, and therefore some of them are involved in illegal mining. Does the department feel some kind of responsibility here as to these workers finding something to do with their talent?
Now, but before he even responds, did you hear the question? The question supposes that I, as a parent, I'm a father, I, as a father, can give birth to children, right? Not educate them, and then expect that when they are adults, they should have gainful employment. The state suddenly should have this burden of these children who are now adults as citizens, who are not adding any value to the state, who instead are going to be involved in a criminal enterprise. That's what that question, it's a very loaded question. It's a question that says, we as South Africans have embraced the communist ideology that now we have transferred the responsibility of the parents to the state. This is why we have such a huge tax burden. Okay? This is why we have such a huge tax burden on our shoulders, precisely because our media regurgitate the communist nonsense that the state has an obligation to feed the citizens. So you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now, I have to be brutally honest here. I'm going to allow the gentleman to respond, but it is not the state's responsibility to take care of the citizens this way. The state exists to provide infrastructure with our tax money because the state does not have money. So it taxes us, right, to create infrastructure so that there are roads, okay, so that there is public transport provided by the state. Now, that public transport, the state subsidizes it because they can't provide it fully. Why? Because you can't go to work for free. The communist utopia does not exist in any country that can be self-sustaining. So, here's the point. The state is supposed to provide hospitals through our tax, right? The state is supposed to provide the police for domestic terrorism. The state is supposed to provide the army for foreign terrorism. Now, if you guys like, I can simply make a video, a detailed video that gives you the responsibility of the state, because I perceive, maybe I should make that video, because I perceive many of our fellow countrymen do not know what is the role of the state. For South Africans, or rather for South Africa's economy to thrive, for South Africa's SMMEs not to have this overburden of tax, so that they can invest the money back into creating more jobs, right? Because you can't have the state overburdening us who are paying tax. Otherwise, you're going to have a situation where you have a failed state. Why? Because those who are paying tax, if it gets to be too much, they are going to leave. What is your definition of slavery? If you're paying tax as much as, for an example, just again, this is just for example purposes. You're looking at certain tax brackets of 41%, right? And this is real. And then you're saying 41%, you add the VAT on that, which is 15%. That's 56% of your salary. And then over and above that, you add the fuel levy. Why should an individual, therefore, can you see what's happening here now? Right now, you are incentivizing people not to work because it is more profitable to sit at home rather and receive a grant of some sort rather than going to work if already your tax burden is at 60%. Can you see that? So government always needs to balance this. That is why the growth of economy requires people who know what they are talking about, not comrades. No. That's why politicians are supposed to have advisors. But let's go back then, because I digress, but I believe the digression was completely necessary. Because the question that Toli is asking, he's saying these people are unskilled. Who made them unskilled? Whose obligation was it for them to be skilled? Is it that there were no schools in South Africa? Is it that there were no universities in South Africa? Are you following me? Whose responsibility was it to skill them? Why are they unskilled? That is why society needs to take responsibility for its actions. Because before we know it, we are going to be blaming government for everything. Even for the things that government is not supposed to discharge. And government has no money. They have to tax you and I to literally pay somebody money. And if you're not adding value to the government cannot use you. And you don't have a right to march and say you are unskilled because of government. No, you are unskilled because of the circumstances within which you grew up in. And those circumstances, yes, were as a child, they were imposed on you by your parents, but don't transfer that responsibility to the state.
We have a responsibility as the department to make sure that the mining industrial sector is open for everyone who wishes to participate. And that is why in the MPRDA Section 12, we have a special provision that looks at historically disadvantaged individuals. And through that section, it allows historically disadvantaged individuals to apply for mining permits. That's the first thing. Secondly, we have the artisanal and small-scale mining as the department policy, and that policy is there then to strengthen that part of the Section 12.1 of the MPRDA to support and make sure that the sector, the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, grows. And it is a sector that exists. And we also have the artisanal and small-scale fund. That is the third thing that we have to support up-and-coming and historically disadvantaged individuals to participate in the mining industry. So it is not true that the department is not doing anything at all to make sure that those small miners who want to participate into the industry are being given support.
If artisanal...
Now, before Kole's question comes in, do you see that this gentleman has just debunked what Joseph Matunjwa is saying? Can you see that? He's just debunked it. They even have policies in place. They even have a fund for SMMEs who wants to pursue this, right? So what is Matunjwa talking about? This is a problem I always have with unions. They promote lawlessness.
Mining is already a...
That those small miners who want to participate into the industry are being given support.
If artisanal mining is already a policy of this government, what is the difference between what the people who are underground in Stilfontein are doing versus what you say is artisanal small-scale mining?
Well, there is a huge difference. Firstly, artisanal and small-scale miners tend to take a formal approach. They are registered with the CISPC as a company or as a cooperative. That's the first thing. And secondly, they are formalized, right? And they adhere in their operations, they adhere to environmental laws, and also they adhere to the MPRDA, and they also have authorization in terms of the mining permit that they get from us. That is the difference. Illegal miners, one, they don't have authorization, they don't have a permit to mine. Two, there is violence involved. There are gangs, and there are mining practices that do not adhere to environmental safety. So that is a huge, huge difference between illegal miners and artisanal and small-scale miners.
Final question to you, sir. The process by the department to close these mine shafts, the very ones that get exploited by illegal miners, how far are you from closing them down throughout the country?
So we have so far closed about 295 openings and mine shafts. And to this year, we are planning to close about 40 of those. And we obviously going to prioritize these hotspot areas And that is as far as we are concerned. That is as far as we have gone, and that is an ongoing activity. But over and above that, we also are monitoring mining operations, mining companies to do concurrent rehabilitation. That means if they've been mining in this shaft and for them it doesn't make business sense anymore, and we monitor them to rehabilitate such mines. And if they have to close, to shut it down, and they need to do that. So that is as far as we have gone with the process.
What is the cost implication for the department in shutting down these open holes?
So this year the budget, it's on average about 131 million. That is the budget that we have for shutting down these holes.
And per year, how much do you spend out of that?
I don't have the figures now. I would have to check for you.
All right. Hopefully we are...
Did you guys hear that? This interview was important because it clarifies a lot of things when it comes to the assertions made by the two unionists. These people are nothing but anarchists. That's what unionists are. They are individuals. They are no different from the people who claim to be fighting for an economic freedom for others, but yet they stay in Houghton. They stay in and they drive expensive cars. Others claim to be communists, but you must see what they drive and the cars, what the clothes they wear and the cars they drive and the places they stay in, but yet they claim to be fighting for the poor. Because the poor are literally the cattle by which they are able to achieve the status they so much pursue. That's a reality of these individuals. Other than that, they have absolutely no skill. Think about what I've just said to you long and hard. You take away the nonsense of having politicians who have absolutely no experience of being entrepreneurs or of having, let's argue and say this. If we were to decide that only people who have worked in the private and public sector as doctors, as auditors, as nurses, as engineers are allowed to be politicians, and they must have, at least before they can speak publicly about anything that affects the public, they must have earned working experience, meaning they have a practical, pragmatic solution to the problem facing our nation, as engineers, as auditors, as lawyers, for at least 30 years, before they are ever allowed to want to talk about being politicians and sitting in parliament. If you were to say that, you know what that will do? One, it will change the dynamic of the rhetoric. You will have tremendous efficiency. Look at what Donald Trump is doing right now. Now, some of you may not know this, but many of you know already that I'm a Trump fan, a huge Trump fan. Why? Very pragmatic. He ran America for 4 years like a business, and America and the world, including South Africa, prospered like nobody's business. Then he was removed. Then suddenly we saw everything going up to the ceiling. I digress. I said that to say this. If the state does not put its foot down, did you hear how Matunjwa and that gentleman in the studio lied through their teeth, creating an impression that the state was incompetent? Sure, the state is incompetent. I'm one of the, in many areas than one, but it is clear that in this regard, the minister was right in saying that's criminality and we are going to bomb them into smithereens. If they continue with it, we're not sending them any help. We can't help criminals. Already we have a problem. The spaza shops to which Matunjwa wanted to divert and speak about, already that's a problem. So our country is under siege. So the minister was well within a right to say, this is criminality, we're going to deal with it. We can't have it both ways. We can't have our cake and eat it as citizens. It is very important. If we are up in arms and saying the spaza shops, children are being poisoned, right? And then when government is doing something in Operation Valumkoti, now we are complaining. We were seeing people who are dead in these communities being shot dead through this violence between the Zamazamas, and all these are foreigners. Or, well, not all of them, predominantly are foreigners. This is problematic. So at some point in time, we've got to, as citizens, to keep quiet and allow government to do its job. The only people who should be concerned here are those who violated the law. Allow government to do their job. Now, let's listen to another member who is a leader in these communities. Remember, I'm doing two things here. I'm showing you how manipulative the media is and the mindset that exists amongst black people of thinking that you can justify lawlessness. This, if we don't get rid of this mindset, South Africa is not going to make progress at all, because the spaza shop epidemic is arising precisely because there are South Africans who are benefiting from these illegal foreigners who are in our country. From the women that marries them illegally to the people that rent, these illegal foreigners are renting the rooms in their backyards. That's the very, and of course the ones who benefit from being sold food on credit. So if we are a nation that doesn't respect the law, then we can easily be taken advantage of. And then we shouldn't blame the government. Government is doing its job right now. We need to sit down and hold the line and allow the government to do its work. It's clear that it's a lie that the Zamazamas arose because there's no artisan miners program in South Africa. It's pretty clear. And that's the lie the unions and these leaders, like the one I'm about to show you, have been selling. Listen to this.
President Ntshavheni says there are no plans to assist the ongoing rescue efforts of suspected illegal miners in Stilfontein in the northwest. Over 4,000 people are allegedly underground in a disused mine shaft after more than 1,000 were arrested last week during Operation Vala Umkoti. For more on this, let's now speak to Mishak Mbangula, who is the National Coordinator for the Mining Affected Communities United in Action. Mishak, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. What was your reaction when you heard what the Minister had to say yesterday? We will smoke them out, she says. And she says that they weren't sent there by the state, and they're not doing this for the benefits of the country. What's your take on this?
Quite devastating, very devastating, because those are human beings. Criminals, we have criminals in jail, which is, they got 3 meals a day, and why these people should be treated in this manner, because they're just human beings. And the reason that they are being there, most of that is because they had poverty, and they were there just to get something to put on the table. You know, that's very disappointing and devastating to have the whole minister who's elected by the people, government of the people, by the people, for the people. But this time it's against the people, and don't want to hear anything about the people.
Yeah.
No. 1,000 times no. The minister was elected by South Africans, not foreigners who are going to come here and practice lawlessness. And if any of the few South Africans who have decided to join these foreigners in sabotaging their very own country, elected the minister so that they can practice lawlessness, imagine a rapist saying, I elected the minister of police, therefore I shouldn't be going to jail. Imagine a guy involved in cash heist making the argument that Meshach is making here. This argument is, for me, it dies on arrival. Why? It makes absolutely no sense. You cannot now try to link the fact that this is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people to the fact that someone is practicing lawlessness. The people voted the government to protect them from such illegalities. We are law-abiding citizens, and therefore our government has to separate criminals from law-abiding citizens. That's why we have a government.
But what do you make of the aspects that she puts forward, that they weren't sent down the ground or down these holes by the
Very true.
state. They're doing it for their own benefit and I guess for their families' benefit as well. So why should the state be held responsible?
You see, any criminals that do criminality in whatever sector is not sent by the government, but it's taken to jail to get the right food. But what happened in this case is that obviously those people who went there.
I hope I heard him wrongly. He says the criminals are taken to jail to get the right food. I hope I heard him wrongly. I'm willing to let that go. Let's continue.
You must understand that the criminals are the minds that came into South Africa and mined without rehabilitating. And they left those holes, they left those shafts open, and those people who are there, the only skill they have is to do mining for them to put bread on the table. So they should have started with the very same people who mined and not did rehabilitate. Those are the first criminals, and that's something should have been done. Those people are there because South Africa unemployment rate is very high. And if this sector, when we started speaking to them in 2014, 22 till now, they should have transformed that sector to a safe sector and be able to generate jobs out of those things. We should have been somewhere. But because they are stubborn and they believe they better, they know about these things, then we are in this uncontrollable situation. And we cannot at any stage, what we are saying to the government, save life. Save life, to make police stand there. Those people are shocked. When the police are out there, it's very difficult for you to come out because you are facing But if we can have a government.
Did you guys hear that? The reason why those miners are not coming out is because the police are on the ground. So they know that what they are doing is illegal. That's the reason why they are not coming out. They are not trapped in those mines. Did you hear that?
Who can organize. We have geologists, we've got a lot of people, and even very same guys who are working in the mines, who have gone down and talked to the people to come out to save lives. And at the moment, those people are dehydrated, didn't eat for so many days, not only doesn't have water, they are sick. They need assistance to go out there because they themselves close for the people who support them to give food. So it's the government who have to make means and ways of talking to the people and be brought up, save life.
So what would you have preferred to hear from Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni yesterday?
Is to say we are organizing people who understand the underground mining and to go down there and be able to talk to the people and make them sure they come out and save the life of the people and not to say we're going to smoke them out. Because those people, I'm still saying, as long as there is poverty, we will have people going down. It's not only in Stilfontein. We have more than 75,000 of Zamazama around South Africa. And we need to look at how do we transform this sector to be a sector that can generate work jobs, not just to say people are criminals. And we're having commercial mines that are running in South Africa, taking a lot of minerals that doesn't have licenses. And we have given those reports to the DNPR. Look, this mine is running for 2 years without a license. And because they are elites, white elites, the activities are undertaken by them, nothing is happening to them because they get taxes from them, which is give them big houses, luxury cars, and nothing happens. And those taxes are not scaling down to the people to benefit or to generate jobs or to create decent jobs for the people. This government is really ruthless, doesn't really know what are people. They should do something. We can't give ideas. We have people. I mean, if an ordinary community member would go down and check those people, we can have those people who are able to go down there and take out those people.
Yeah,
not just
but isn't the difference, Mishak, that perhaps that community member that went down is somebody who's known by some of the people who are underground, so there is no hostility. But we know, as a matter of fact, in the stories that we've covered before when it comes to illegal miners, is that they are heavily armed. So if you were to send down police officers, as an example, or the geologists that you are speaking about, what guarantee is there that their lives will not be under threat once they are down and underground?
There's always negotiations. if the community member can go down and come back alive, that will be the negotiator to
Yeah,
say,
but I'm saying that is perhaps somebody that they know, and evidently that person knows how to scale those tunnels. One of the reasons that some of the mine workers don't want to come up is because they fear that they will be arrested. So what guarantee is that if the state was to intervene and send people down there, that those people's lives will not be under threat, let alone that the mines are saying that these areas are not safe?
You see, mining is not in any way a risky business. But what you are saying is that we should not start it by just going there and stopping food, stopping water. That tells the people that this is vicious. There's war here. But if you went down there and say there's this issue, you have to come out in this manner. What I'm saying is that either the geologists and the other people, led by the very community member, to go down there and say, we are not here to fight you, we are here to talk to you. And in any way, those people are now weak and sick. We are not going to be facing people who are strong and whatever. It's been days, those people not eating, not getting water. So definitely sure they will be prepared to talk. They're not something that is they still can carry those guns and do whatever. The system, the conditions have changed. The environment needs people who can go down there and say, we can assist, put a loaner and take them up.
Okay.
And follow the process.
So once they have resurfaced, one of the other organizations that we were speaking to here on the channel had said that these miners, the illegal miners, should be granted amnesty. What's your view on what should happen, because there is illegality that is taking place once those miners resurface? Whichever way they come out, whether it is through the assistance of community members, whether it's through the assistance of the state, but whichever way that they come out, what should happen to those individuals?
Those people should be granted amnesty because, like we indicated, we believe if that sector was transformed long time ago, that sector would be very. But those people should be granted amnesty because if you look at this case, they went into that mine which was left by the very same other mines, and what they are doing there is trespassing, right? And if there were issues of maybe other issues that are there, then obviously the case will be looked at in that manner. But the only time that we're doing is trespassing and getting something to put on the table. So amnesty is very correct.
I ran out of words. Mishek seems to me to be suffering what Elon Musk calls a woke mind virus. He is saying criminals whose first act in our country was to violate our regulatory framework by coming via a back door. 1. 2, they have then gotten themselves in a criminal enterprise of mining illegally, should be given amnesty. Really? Are we running a country here and then you want to speak like Matunjwa and say this is a banana republic, and when the laws are being enforced, you talk about amnesty? What exactly is going on here? Am I missing something? If I was the head of NPA, this guy, this Mishak guy, would be thoroughly investigated. We would know everything there is to know about him, because to me, he sounds like a co-conspirator. He says there's 75,000 Zamazamas in this country. How does he know that? How does he know that? Remember, in South Africa, if you know of a criminal activity that is taking place and you do not report it, you yourself are complicit to that crime. And in this case, he has publicly just now admitted on national television that he knows the number of people who are practicing illegal mining in our country. How does he know that? Consider this.
An investigation has been launched to determine who's recruiting illegal miners in Stilfontein That's in the Northwest. The Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, and the National Police Commissioner, as well as the Defence Force Chief, are expected to visit the area. Now, the National Police spokesperson, Athlenda Mate, joining us now for an update on the situation there. Brigadier, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Let's start with the numbers that you are disputing. We have been talking about 4,500 people that are underground. What do your figures tell you? Because you are saying the number is much less than what has been said.
Well, a very good evening and thank you for the opportunity. In terms of the numbers, Xoli, we do feel that the numbers are being exaggerated. We have pulled all resources and mobilized maximum resources to work on this particular case. We have been collecting information. We've got our intelligence operatives on the ground that are working closely with key stakeholders. We have managed to estimate the numbers to be between 350 and 400. We don't dispute that there are hundreds of illegal miners that are underground and refuse to resurface, but we are only disputing the exaggeration of the thousands that are still stuck underground.
So where do you put that figure? I think you may have put it in the hundreds.
Yeah, we are putting the figure to be between 350 and 400 illegal miners that are still underground and refuse to resurface. We have been making this call to all illegal miners to resurface, and I think as a responsible government, we have gone to great lengths to try and communicate to ensure that all these illegal miners resurface safely. We've gone as far as writing posters or drafting posters, sending them down to the shafts, sending a negotiator as well. We've even gone as far as allowing water and food to be delivered down to these illegal miners to allow them to gain strength so that they will be able to come out. But even those efforts fell on, deaf ears. We are now at a situation where we are aware that these illegal miners refuse to resurface, they refuse to cooperate with the SAPS, and we have no choice but to stamp the authority of the state. And I think it's important to indicate that we are not backing down as law enforcement. We have a responsibility to prevent and combat all incidents of criminality, and illegal mining is one of them. We are not backing down. As you can see behind me, police officers that are deployed to combat illegal mining operations. Day shift is making way for the night shift. They have been working hard, dedicated in combating these types of illegal mining activities that we are seeing in this area.
That's very interesting, Brigadier, because in the last few days, there has been the situation, especially through our reporter based in the Northwest, that the police at a certain time would pack up and go. But you are suggesting now that the police are going to be stationed there day and night. Do I have that correct?
Absolutely. We've been running this particular operation for several months, where we employed a strategy to ensure that we block the provision of food, water, and necessities to underground, all these shafts, as a form of forcing these illegal miners to resurface. So our operations are 24/7. We do have members that are static at all these abandoned, disused illegal mining shafts that are just waiting to ensure that when they do resurface, they are processed and arrested. And I must indicate that when they do resurface, we do inspect them. There are police officers that are standing there with metal detectors to detect whether or not they do have gold-bearing material with them, whether or not they have firearms with them. So today we saw about 4 resurfacing. Unfortunately, we also, one decomposed body was brought up. We have registered an inquest to determine the circumstances surrounding the death of this particular illegal miner who was brought up this afternoon.
Yeah, and that exactly is where I want to lead to next, because the language that I've been observing from yourself, Brigadier Mate, is that these are people who refuse to come out. Today, you have seen evidence of a death from underground, and you say this is a decomposing body. And it talks to what some people are saying. These are people who are facing a perilous situation, basically a life-threatening situation. They do want to come out, but they seem to be stuck because they have no energy because of resources or replenishments that have basically been blocked from going underground, whether it's water or food. Why are you intent on this narrative that says they refusing to come out? They have the capacity to come out on their own, but they are refusing. Where do you get that information from?
Well, Koli, we must make it quite clear, as the SAPS and as law enforcement, we are not going to be allowing any police officer to go down there, any SANDF member to go down there. We have been reliably told by the mine owner, as well as the Departments of Minerals, Resources and Energy, that this disused and abandoned mine is not safe. It would be inhumane to allow people to go down and operate, and especially police officers who serve and protect the people of this country with dedication and commitment. So let's make it quite clear. We do believe where we are standing that we have provided ample time for all these illegal miners to resurface. We are investigating allegations that there are gangs down there that are preventing some illegal miners from resurfacing. There's a lot of intimidation and so on. But we have made that call. We are not backing down. We do understand from what we have been told from those that have been down there that the situation is a bit dire. People are falling ill, but we are making that call to say, here is your opportunity, resurface. As soon as you're resurfaced, there are emergency services that are available to attend to these particular illegal miners. As I've indicated, we've got hazardous gases underground. We have been advised accordingly. But also what is of key importance to communicate is that in most of the incidents that we have worked and as the SAPS and as the NUT joins, we've picked up that all these illegal miners are heavily armed. We have collected and seized 369 high-caliber firearms since this operation started in December in all the 7 provinces that we are operating. We've had confiscation of more than 10,000 rounds of ammunition. So we are obviously concerned about the risk, especially loss of life down there. Yeah. But we have provided that opportunity to say resurface. We are not blocking any route, exit or entry. We have merely deployed police officers to stand static there to ensure that no food, no water is taken down there, but also to ensure that no commodity that was mined illegally is brought up, and such things like drugs and firearms are also not brought up.
Very briefly, Brigadier, you said an investigation has been launched to determine who is recruiting the illegal miners. Are you making any advances as far as that investigation is concerned? How far?
Now, before she gets to that, because that's going to answer the question that these union members seems to have been using. You know, when someone is using a broomstick to hide, how pathetic that looks. It's like little children. What they would do, they will take their hand and hide their face and they think you can't see them. So these unions are hiding behind the fact that they are white elites and Chinese to whom this gold is sold, but that is still a criminal syndicate. which the state apparatus will deal with. However, it is noteworthy that these individuals are not coming up, they are not held at ransom by anybody save they are obviously gangs, to which you cannot expect our police to negotiate with that underground. The police have used a loudspeaker to alert them to come out to resurface. Now, this makes a lot of sense and give context to Minister Ntshavheni's assertions that we will bomb them, or as she said, smoke them out, right? Because smoking them out could simply be referring to tear gassing them. Remember that. These people are in the bosom of the earth, 3 kilometers away from the surface. And they are heavily armed. They have gangs amongst themselves. They even have shops underneath there. Depending on who have you listened to, who has actually proceeded forth from underneath to the surface. So they don't want to come out because they know what they are carrying out underneath there is a criminal activity. And so the police are saying, we are going to close this mine, so it is good for you to come out. You will no longer be getting water that this community has been giving you. You will no longer be getting any food. So come out so that we process you. We are on to you, right? So can you see now why within the context, suddenly, Ntshavheni, the minister's assertion that we are going to smoke them out makes sense? She may not have even meant bomb them, because the word smoke them out simply means smoke them out. What does that mean? Tear gas would literally be smoking them out. But the first preference given to them is so that they can come upstairs by themselves. No, what these guys who are union leaders are saying, which for me is a woke virus mentality that many black people carry, is that, no, they have rights. No. Every human being, rights give rise to obligation. Every human being has obligations attached to their rights. It's nauseating to see how that these union leaders, none of them were willing to take responsibility. The last one is even worse. He says these people should be given amnesty. These people are carrying firearms that has not been given to them through licensing. So they have not only come to our country illegally, they have mined illegally, they have human trafficked other human beings and held them at ransom at gunpoint 3 kilometers in the bosom of the earth. And they are supposed to be given amnesty. Really? What do these people think South Africa is? Let's finish this interview.
Right, basically.
Well, these illegal mining investigations have been ongoing for quite some time. We have arrested a few illegal mining kingpins. You will recall earlier this year, we had 6 that were arrested in Carltonville, together with their wives. We have seized some of their properties, some of their vehicles, and so on. And I do believe some of them are out on bail. We also recently arrested some 2 illegal mining kingpins in the Limpopo province, where they were arrested for dealing illegally in chrome. And they were found to be in possession of about 20 million of chrome. So we do believe that we are making inroads. We are investigating who are the kingpins, especially on this particular operation. We do have information, but at this stage, that's not information that we are going to be sharing with members of the public. It is an ongoing operation. We do request the people of this country to support this particular operation, to support our men and women in blue, as well as members of the SANDF who are here to stamp the authority of the state. I must say, Vala Umgodi operation has registered commendable progress. Since inception from December 2023, we've had reduced incidents of dead bodies that we are picking up of illegal miners that were involved in turf wars. We haven't had incidents. You will recall there was an incident in Krugersdorp where 8 women were raped by these illegal miners. And I think the challenge there and why there has not been a breakthrough in that particular case is because the majority of these illegal miners are foreigners, meaning we do not have any information on them. So if they do commit these crimes, it becomes difficult for us to trace them and so on. So we are urging communities around here, support the work of the police. We are not here to work against you. Let's work together to prevent and combat all forms of criminality.
So basically, you heard it for yourself. This is a mission that is meant to cause lawfulness to prevail. Only citizens who think that laws are meant to be broken would be saying the thing that you heard those 3 union reps saying with their mouth. It's pretty clear, even the context of what the media, remember I said I was going to show you 2 things. How the media manipulates the mindset that exists amongst black people predominantly. Of course, they do this even with white people. So for me, it's not about race. But this mindset that the laws are meant to be broken is evident that it exists. It's a criminal mentality. It's prevalent across color lines. However, because we are majority, that's why I'm addressing it that way. And I'm explaining this for all those race hustlers who are going to make allegations that I think that white people do not violate the law. Of course they do. They are the ones buying this gold. That on its own is a criminal activity. They are the ones buying this gold. They're not supposed to be buying this gold. They are the ones who are being arrested as kingpins. They themselves are facing the might of the law. Isn't that great? This is great news. So we know that there is a program in government for artisan miners. It is patently false what the unions are spreading, that there is no program. And I can say, as a person who grew up poor, it is a blatant lie to suggest that people are practicing criminal conduct or criminal activity simply because they are poor. Poverty does not lead to criminal activities. Okay? There is no congruency or there is no truth in that statement. Causation is not correlation. Just because these things are somewhat correlated, they don't cause one another. There's a lot of people who are poor that I know, whom I grew up with. Today they are not poor because of the effort that their parents and themselves placed in their books. And they today are somebodies. This is very, very important. This is a culture that we would adopt. It's really a simple process to success, a simple path, critical path towards success, which I have adopted it from Professor Thomas Sowell, Professor Williams, as well as Larry Elder from America. And this is the path. Go to school. Pay attention to what you do. Preferably, it should be in the STEM subjects. If it is not in the STEM subjects, at least you should be doing accounting and become an auditor if you are not an engineer. Start your own business, SMME. Or if you have done the STEM subjects, you will be employed. Make sure there is a job market for what you're wanting to study for. Therefore, by the time you're doing grade 10, pursue career guidance. Be informed adequately about what you want to achieve. Stay away from making babies outside wedlock. Get yourself a job. Get married. Now you can make babies. If you follow this order, this process in this order, you will never become an artisan miner. You will never become an unskilled laborer who wants to depend on government to provide a reskilling for you when you have lost your job. As a matter of fact, you may not even need a job. You may be creating jobs yourself. You could be a plumber. You could be an electrician. You could be an auditor, internal or external. You could be an engineer. You could start a spaza shop. There's so many things that you can do. You could start a hair salon. There are so many things that you can do in the retail industry, which, according to our laws, should be reserved for South Africans. There's so much that you can do within the law to succeed as an individual. In this economy, the problem is that many people want to be employed. That's the problem. And also that many people are unskilled. The group that we've just spoken about here right now, you heard the unions with their poisonous venom, claiming that it is a government's obligation to reskill these people. These people are practicing this lawlessness because they lost their jobs, they are poor, and therefore they have to practice lawlessness. We as black people need to reject that mindset. In one of the programs, podcasts on YouTube, I may not tell you which one it is, ran by an Afrikaner. Well, why do I need to hide it? There's no need for me to hide it. And I think it's Ernst Roux or Roots. There was a comment that said something along the lines that lawlessness is black people's culture. I vehemently disagreed with that because I'm black. But you know what? Observing the level of crime in South Africa and how that South Africans, because the community, you've seen it for yourself, 3 union leaders are promoting what is happening here. They say, yeah, sure, these people are trespassing, these people are practicing lawlessness, but surely we can't arrest them. Surely we must give them amnesty. It is their poverty that led to them doing this. For how long are we going to promote lawlessness as a country? How could we make progress when we have anointed ourselves to be spokesperson on behalf of individuals who are sabotaging our country? If it is not South African women selling marriages, fake marriages to foreigners so that they can attain citizenship, it is now South African men going down and representing foreigners who are here illegally to practice lawlessness called Zamazamas. This is not acceptable. We need to wake up as a country. And I agree with Brigadier Mate. We do need to support our men in blue. Without a doubt, even our army. What do you think about Minister Ntshavheni's assertions? I think she was right. We need to smoke them out because otherwise we're going to have a crisis. They are all going to die there. If they want to be on a hunger strike and they want, rather than being arrested, they want to die underground because they will die there. Make no mistake about it. You can only live for so long underground. I hope you guys understand the context now that I've played all these videos and gave a commentary on them for you to understand the context of what the minister meant. Of course, this is not my favorite minister. I don't even have a favorite minister in the government of the ANC. I have videos here where I've disagreed with her. But concerning this lawlessness, how long will we practice lawlessness? How long? We keep on saying Nigerians, Mozambicans, of course, all these foreigners are heavily involved here, but you are the SADC region in this Zamazama story. But we keep on wanting to blame only them. Meanwhile, our fellow South Africans are involved. Can you see that? Those union leaders are not innocent at all. Their attitude doesn't promote law and order and good citizenship. It doesn't. What do you guys think? Well, tell me down below. Ciao, ciao.